love meatloaf, but my vegetarian friends can't enjoy it, so I thought I'd develop a new recipe to add to my new book, The Slow Cook. This meat-free version is a delight, and I use many different beans, so lentils and kidney beans, to bind it together so it actually emulates meat. It's absolutely delicious. So first up, we need to make a barbecue sauce. Good old tomato sauce, about half a cup into a pot. And this barbecue sauce is not only going to be for the crust of the loaf, but it's also going to season it at the beginning too. So some vinegar, Worcestershire sauce, and some five spice, a good hit of Chinese five spice, and some garlic, and I've just minced that garlic up. Okay, that goes onto the stovetop, just on a medium heat. I'll just give that a very quick whisk and allow that to bubble away for a few minutes. Now for the base of this, celery, carrot and onions, and I'm just going to cut them into chunks. Some carrot, again, cut that into 4, and 1 onion we'll cut into 8 chunks. All right, we'll pop that in. And we're just going to chop this until it's quite fine. I don't want to be too chunky for this, nice and fine. And we'll just place that on a high speed. All right, wonderful. That's quite fine, that's how I like it to be. Now I've preheated my pan, I've got that on a medium heat, and we're just going to add these veggies and start to cook them off to soften. So a good glug of extra virgin olive oil, say about a tablespoon to start with. We may add a little more later on when we add the bread. Just add that to the pan. You see that texture? That's why it's best to do this recipe with a food processor, so we do get it to emulate the mincemeat. Okay, and we'll just separate that so it cooks quite evenly. Now, no need to clean the food processor because we're going to use it again for the walnuts. So a good handful of walnuts and some bread. So just tear the bread, I'm using sourdough, into small pieces. And this now goes back onto the machine and we're going to blend it again until it's almost like a fine crumb. That's what we're after. Ah, wonderful, a fine crumb. That's looking good. So this also goes into the pan, and this doesn't need much cooking. I just want to toast it off slightly, and this is where you can add a little more oil if you like. So scrape that out. Don't worry about cleaning it out too much because we're going to use it again. So we'll toss that together, and to give this a hit of flavour, some dried oregano, some smoked paprika, good crack of pepper, and as always, a pinch of salt. Okay, it does need some oil, so we'll just add about another tablespoon. Get our spatula and just combine that. Okay, now to bind this all together, this is where the beans and also some chickpeas come into play. I'll place the blade back into our food processor, a whole can of chickpeas with the liquid. This liquid is going to help bind everything. So in it goes, and we're going to blend this until it's smooth. Okay, it's looking good. So we'll add this now to a bowl, scrape down the sides, and in it goes. Then we'll add the vegetables and the breadcrumbs. That goes directly into the bowl with our chickpea mixture. and there's one more blend. And you may be saying, why don't I just add it all together and blend? The reason I don't do that is because I'm looking for a specific texture. I really want it to be like the minced meat texture. And by doing this in the separate stages, we're getting different textures. So for example, at this stage when I'm going to add the lentils, so in with the lentils, and I'll add the kidney beans, and some cooked quinoa, but you can change this to rice if you've got some leftover rice. I'm only going to pulse this a few times because I want some more texture in the loaf. So I don't want this to be pureed like the chickpea. So that's why we do it in stages. So again, lid on and just pulse 4 or 5 times. Oh, wonderful. That's what we're after. And that's it for the blending, I promise. And I'm going to add all of this together and we just give it a good mix. And for extra flavour, don't forget about our barbecue sauce. A few tablespoons of our barbecue sauce. We're going to add the rest of it to the top, 2 to 3 tablespoons. And just give everything a really good mix. Press down on it and fold. And you'll see how it's just coming together? And this is the consistency that we're after. It's just holding its shape. By the time we put this in the oven and allow it to cook, we're going to have a lovely loaf that's going to hold its shape as opposed to crumble. We don't want that. All right, a loaf tin, about a 1.5 litre loaf tin. And we'll place our mixture in, and just like any other meatloaf that you're making, you want to press down on it and ensure that there's no air bubbles, and it will expand slightly as it cooks. Not too much because most of the ingredients are cooked in there, or all of the ingredients are cooked in there, but it still will expand slightly. Spread it out all the way to the sides. Now I like to add a crust to this, a glossy, sticky barbecue sauce crust. So the rest of this goes on. You can reserve a little if you want to be pedantic. You can add a little more to it at the end of the cooking. I'm just going to add the whole lot now. And this just gives the dish a real savoury kick and a sweetness too. Spread that over. It's looking good. And this cooks in the oven 180 degrees for about 1 to 1.5 hours. The best way to check that it's cooked is just to pierce it through the centre with a skewer. If it comes out clean, it's ready. Loaf has come out of the oven, and this is why I like to put baking paper on the bottom, so carefully remove it. And we'll just pull down the sides with a sharp knife. I'm just going to cut it into slices, and I want to show you inside of this. Look how moist that is. Let's add a few slices to a dish, and then we might as well just put the rest of the loaf on the dish for presentation. To serve with this, just a really simple fresh salad, some parsley leaves. I'll just pick the leaves straight into the bowl. Some rocket leaves, you could use watercress if you like, just simple salad leaves if you like too. And always when you're dressing a salad, you need some acid and we need some olive oil. So a little lemon, extra virgin olive oil, and a pinch of salt. Always give your leaves a little love like that. We'll just pop this in and around, just on the top, let it fall down the bottom for presentation. And a little chutney or relish on the side if you've got it in the fridge. That is a fantastic loaf. I'm so proud of this loaf, and you're going to impress your guests with that. They're not missing out at all.